And the guy's a ridiculous person, and he's fun to make fun of because he's just a gaff machine. I mean,
Yeah, but I feel like you're proving my point right here, where I'm saying like there are times where they're correct, and you're saying, but he's a dumb person. So we've already decided we don't like him.
let me
So
tell you
now we
something.
can just like clean, full broad brush, just everything they do is bad now.
Let me tell you something. Not everything. First of all, Jordan Peterson said that Crumb, Terry Zwigoff's Crumb, was the greatest documentary ever made. And I would say that that's a very good contender for the greatest documentary ever made. Second of all, he said something very similar to something that I believed, which is when you can never truly understand what a person's motive is, you look at what the logical outcome of their actions or their beliefs are. And I believe that as well. I think he got it from Carl Jung, I'm guessing, because I think that's the only person he's ever actually read. And
I
so,
think everything he says is from Carl Jung. Yeah.
but yeah, I'm pretty sure that that came from Carl Jung. But people tried to, I saw people try to argue with that, but I use that all the time, and I'm always right. And one person that I've applied that to is Jordan Peterson. Because he sat there and said Bill 16 was all about free speech. And then how many years later, he's now saying, well, trans people probably shouldn't exist because it's bad for our culture.
Yeah.
So you can literally, like, I apply the exact advice that he gave his audience, I applied that to him. So I don't always disagree with him. So, I bet
I
you
mean,
I'll bet you he's got
this is,
some really good advice on how to stop like biting my nails.
well, I was gonna say, I think his 12 Rules for Life was probably a fairly good book. I never read it, but everything that I've heard of it, all of the little snippets of it, I've never seen somebody take something from that book and be like, look how bad it is, and it's actually bad. Um, but I do think that he's fairly irresponsible with his language, and so obviously the whole Bill 16 thing was a sham. He was an idiot. He got all of that wrong. But when he says something like, trans people are bad for society. I'm not transphobic. I have trans people in my mod team. I have a huge portion of my community are trans, but I would probably say that it's not good. It's not helpful. It's probably bad that there are people who struggle with this and that have this mental illness or have not the mental illness of being trans, but of having gender dysphoria
You
um,
empathize with their
and
struggle?
say that again.
You're saying that you empathize with their struggle?
Not just the struggle, but I'm saying it's probably because that would be more about it being bad for the individual. But I think, like, for society, it has brought a lot of norms into question that
Yeah, it
make it
certainly brought my norms
complicated.
into question.
Well, it makes it complicated, but it's a complication for like 1% of the country. And where we are making like broad changes to cultural change or to cultural norms for 1% of the country. I'm not against
Let me
that,
tell you
but
how
I'm saying it is a complication and it is a problem that's being caused
Oh,
by
yeah,
or
yeah.
by trans people for society. Yeah, go ahead.
When I said earlier, when I just now said it caused my norms into question, 5 years ago I never would have thought I would have been attracted to a trans person. Yeah, and I
Mm-hmm.
got a mad crush on one on Twitter right now. So that I don't view that as a bad thing.
Sure, I don't disagree with that, but um, I think that's fairly different from what I was mentioning, where like there are negatives that come to society because trans people exist. This doesn't mean that trans people shouldn't exist, but that there are like
I don't
negatives that
see any
come with this,
negatives.
right?
I don't see the negatives. We have a more diverse population. We are now accepting people who were always there but had to hide.
Yes. Okay. So I guess the hypothetical is if they didn't exist, those complications would no longer exist either, though,
I don't
right?
see where the complications are. Where are the
So,
complications?
well, I just listed off a few. So, um, like changes to cultural norms on like what masculinity is, what femininity is. In a lot of ways, I think it helped by bringing those things into question so that we could better define them and understand them better. And especially for me, like I work in linguistics, and that's something that I've taken very seriously, is understanding gender better. And it's because of all of the trans people that I know now. But at the same time, there issues with sports, issues with bathrooms,
These
issues
are
with
minor
locker rooms,
issues.
issues with like
Okay, first of all,
people feeling safe in what are supposed to be safe spaces for them. It causes complications where we don't have easy answers for these things. And yeah,
I think that these are minor issues.
they
I
might,
never
even if I
understood why.
agreed with that,
I never understood
they
why every bathroom's not unisex. You're not 8 years old, man. It's not gonna. It's not the end of the world if you see a vagina in the same, the stall next to you. It's not. It's not the end of the world. As for sports, they're sports. You know.
yeah, even if I agreed that they're minor issues, they would still be issues nonetheless and be complications for society.
This is what I
And
always
that's all
love.
I'm pointing
The
out.
same people, that complain how the WNBA. Remember, there's a Norm joke. It goes, the next time I watch a WNBA game will be the first time I watch a WNBA game. Well, you can't really complain that they're uninteresting now. I mean, I don't think that these things are that important
Are
to
there
me.
trans people in the WNBA?
I don't know that. I don't know if there were. I don't know. Maybe more
I don't
people would
think so.
watch.
As far as I know, it's really hard for trans people to compete in sports after going on HRT because they become like
Yeah,
insanely weaker from
exactly.
uh,
Or yeah, and they
the
can't.
estrogen.
Sometimes they fail drug tests.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes. So yeah, it's very hard. But my point is like these are in some way complications to our social norms. So like women feeling safe in a bathroom where they're more exposed, they're showing their more intimate parts, and they probably don't want to be around a man. Especially it seems like most women have been sexually harassed in some manner and would feel safer away from men. And now all of a sudden what a man is and whether or not they are around a man is starting to come into question, and whether or not they feel safe in that area now is also starting to come into question. So whether or not it's a huge problem, it's probably not a huge problem, but it is a problem nonetheless for a lot of people that like even if they're not transphobic, lots of times they can still have these complications with separating the two.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And sorry, I was just gonna say, like when Jordan Peterson says stuff like this, I think the way that he says it is insanely irresponsible. I think the way that I said pretty much the same thing as him is a much more responsible way of having that conversation. The way he says it comes off insanely transphobic, and I think he probably actually is transphobic. But that doesn't mean that he's wrong on that point or that he's incorrect. And so it's the same with like what Destiny was talking to Katie about. I had almost the same exact debate with the same exact girl um, on the same exact topic, where
mm-hmm.
my point was he's making a descriptive statement to say that women might have been safer as property, but that doesn't mean that we should go back to when they were property, because there's so many other benefits and
Well,
so
first of
many
all,
other areas besides safety where it's still better. It's just one aspect, safety, which it might not be better.
okay. Well, first of all, we've always had these conversations. Anytime there's progress, we got to hear about how the society's being uprooted if we let so and so sit at the same table as so and so, or we let these people vote. We've always had these conversations. It's just history repeating itself. It's just in a different group this time. And second of all, of course you're not safer if you're somebody's property. You're somebody's property. I mean, I just saw 12 Years a Slave. I don't really buy that. You are literally no longer a human being. You don't have the same rights as a human being because you're somebody's property. You're a thing, not a person. So the Constitution no longer applies to you. The rules don't apply. Of course you're not safer as somebody's property. And by the way, when he said that, I literally on Twitter I said like countdown to when Jordan Peterson denies he just said that. And it was like 24 hours before he did it again. Because he always does that.
Did he deny that he said that, or did he deny that people's interpretation of what he said was correct?
I don't know what's the difference.
Well,
he got into it with Sam Cedar.
Right, and I think Sam Cedar is insanely disingenuous in the way that he was talking about Jordan Peterson.
Why?
Because he is very uncharitable. He doesn't look at what Jordan Peterson actually says.
What's with this charitability, man? I mean, what, dude? I mean, it's not. This isn't the United Way. These guys are trying to take away. These guys are trying to stop. You know that dude gets free healthcare in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, equality of outcome, huh? Equality of outcome. Why can't I get that? No, that's bogus. I don't need to be charitable to a guy who wants to take away my Social Security. He says something stupid, it gets pounded on. No, I'm not his mommy. Sam Cedars is not his mommy. We're not here to hold his hand and teach him how to speak. He's the guy that claims he's very careful with his words. Well, be careful with your words, or someone's going to piss all over you. Because he's a bad person with bad intentions. He said, in the context, he said...
You're saying that it's the target, not the tactic.
No, because what's wrong with the tactic? He said it. Somebody responded to him saying something stupid.
Okay, what is it that he said?
He said, in the context of having a conversation about women being property, said, perhaps, women were safer as property. That's what he said. You can spin it all. Destiny can spin it. Anybody can spin it any way they wants to. But he said it. It's one of many things that we make fun of. And he also said that because he doesn't have the option to be violent toward a woman, he has no ability to control her. And he also denied that he said that. And it's on tape.